Okay, greetings everyone here today. I'm Tim Eaton. Thanks for this invitation in coordination by Stephanie. As you can see, the first slide is Tesla to the goddamn rescue. That's a riff on a program that was done, a project of fundraising, Operation Let's Build a Goddamn Tesla Museum, which some of you may have heard about, by the Oatmeal, which raised $1.5 million in a month to resuscitate the Tesla lab at Wardenclyffe on Long Island. Here's a shot of Tesla in the Time magazine 75th birthday. He was prominent for a time. And anyone here not know who Nikola Tesla was? Everybody's already a Tesla head, cool. So the next slide is a picture of, jump to one, sorry. This is a medallion, a Tesla sesquicentennial medallion representing his three-phase power system electrifying the Earth. Manipulating time and space, his 1906 quote on man. He tames the thundering bolt of Jove and annihilates time and space. So that's where Tesla was at, space annihilator. A colleague recently diagnosed me as a Tesla-holic, but when I saw this picture a few days ago, I decided just a disciple, since no actual imbibing is involved. And it looks like this is just going on autoplay now. This bite-sized congregation shows our fellow acolytes out there. My opinion, which seems increasingly shared, Tesla's a great untold story, but it's time to bring his story into the light. So I'll briefly describe how I got here, what we're doing with Tesla as a movie and project-wise, and aspects of his story's larger implications. Despite being a techno-history buff and young electronics dabbler, I spent 22 years unaware of Nikola Tesla's existence. My family often visited Niagara Falls nearby, and I don't recall seeing him mentioned anywhere, even from a jet plane. In fact, during a bout of youthful indiscretion, I'd read our family's encyclopedia, so I surely should have noticed something unless. Next slide. Was it something to do with his peace ray? And what about that missing Paramount electrical extravaganza newsreel he had shot? Why is there no footage of Nikola Tesla online? Too technical, misplaced, lost? How was it that he'd been disappeared? After all, he'd been the toast of New York, hobnobbing with Sarnoff of RCA, rarefied electrical groups, in London, sitting in Faraday's chair, visiting Paris and Berlin, and hobnobbing with famous actress Sarah Bernhardt, and wealthy socialites who fairly threw themselves at him. So I'm going to let this play because we've got short time at this point. He was friends with Twain and Kipling, a discoverer in radio who had invested his major effort into the ultimate goal of creating a world wireless system to make the planet into one giant global brain, which we can see analogous today as the internet connectivity, which mimics neural synaptic configurations to a certain extent. Perhaps a jumpstart to endeavors like Google. Later, as a budding filmmaker and a Lawrence of Arabia type story fan, I started writing a Tesla screenplay until my career as a visual effects editor became distractingly intense on Titanic, Forrest Gump, Men in Black. During that time, the first agent I contacted said, "No one cares about a dead inventor who got screwed." He might have been right. In 1988, I teamed up with a Tesla ARC expert, Mark Seifer, PhD, author of the book you're all welcome to purchase, to see that his story is told properly, resulting in our screenplay, The Lost Wizard, an epic biopic, which, given the wide scope of Tesla's tales, could easily be expanded as an awesomely epic mini-series. Out of curiosity, who is here because of him as a person and his technology, the rivalries, JP Morgan Edison, any particular interest, subcategory? The whole ball of wax? The Tesla zeitgeist. Okay, what I'm just going to be doing is skimming over a lot of those things, but not a biographical talk per se, as you can get all that information out of Mark's definitive biography. There he is. My screenwriting partner and author of Wizard, who's in Rhode Island at the moment and couldn't make it today. A bunch of reviews from different places seeing the validation of his work. Highly recommended by the AAAS. And also available at audible.com at an unbeatable price. As an intro, buy one, buy three, get one free. So these are some of the movies I've worked on, 32 movies in 26 years. So I'm trying to make this picture. Over the years, the main thrust has been the movie, but we're also working on several interrelated projects. This is a screen grab of one of our video demos. How could the world forget Nikola Tesla? That's the sort of crux of the entire reason most people are here. So I originally was considering environmental sciences, but I thought messaging via movies could be important, so I attended film school to learn the production. And somehow, I can't recall, I became aware of poet Ezra Pound's comment that the artist is the antenna of the world, later amplified by Marshall McLuhan and artist as radar. Then I came across Terence McKenna and a statement he made, the artist's task is to save the soul of mankind, and anything less is dithering while Rome burns. So for me to do a project, it's got to be something consequential and just not another Superman. Oh, Tesla versus Superman. My proposition is a real uber hero trumps a fictional superhero. To set the scene, a few personal events primed my Tesla interest. First of all, it's a story that they don't want you to know. So a lot of things I did in my earlier years, not knowing about Tesla, seem to have a later correspondence, inflection point activities. I joined a high school conscience recycling club, which its founder, Jenny Fike, pitched as waste not, want not. A lot of people were dubious that it actually would amount to anything, but it began what is now known as blue box recycling in 1970 in my hometown of Kitchener, Ontario, Canada, which was appropriated by the Ontario government, the Canadian government. Tesla said, do away with innumerable causes of sinful waste. So there you go, recycling, Tesla. Later on, I was a member of an inflection point experience. We had this group, Wired World. We set out to make a community radio station, which we founded the first community radio station in Canada, CKWR, 40th anniversary. If you had an idea for a radio show, you showed up and you did your thing. But now it's a little more under control. So back to Tesla, worldwide wireless. The true wireless, a broadcasting technology, is the heart of Tesla's vision. He was the man with a plan. So I was finishing my student film thesis, Nostradamus, seeing as how I have an interest in biographical things, Nostradamus and Tesla just click. I came across an article in New Age magazine in 1977. Find that despite being a relatively well-educated history buff, this Tesla fellow had been rendered essentially invisible. I was indignant at what smacked of historical revisionism. Later on, in my spin down memory lane, I lived with some friends in Canada's first thermal solar energy demo house built by the National Research Council of Canada. During that time, I was a member of the Solar Energy Society of Canada, and I came across a book that he'd written in 1900, an article for the Century magazine called The Problem of Increasing Human Energy, with special reference to the harnessing of the sun. I found it in an occult bookshop, which was a mimeograph copy that you had to basically go to these bizarre places to find anything about Tesla. So this visual effect trick photo sparked my cinematic interest, and I'm sure you've seen this picture. It's pretty ubiquitous. The Big Bang Theory has it on the set. Big Bang Theory fans? With my growing environmental and Tesla awareness, I merged all this and I said starting a script until 1980. Dang it. They came out with a movie with Orson Welles. I said, who's going to want to bother? But then, skipping ahead that the machine just did, I was working at ILM and I thought, gosh, this logo of ILM with this dude is kind of similar to this guy. So I said, well, I'm working at a place that makes movies and they do amazing effects, so why don't we just revisit the idea of Tesla? So I went to Colorado where I met about a guy who was the top Tesla encyclopedia, go-to Tesla guy. I wanted to work with the top authority, Mark, who wrote the book, once again, back in the golden age of our early efforts, when I had more hair. Also at the conference, my focus on Tesla messaging was magnified by the closing talk by Adam Trombley of Project Earth. He mentioned that he'd been a student of Buckminster Fuller, whose book Operating Manual for Spaceship Earth I'd carried with me in my briefcase for years. And I just never quite understood exactly what it was about. His other book, Utopia or Oblivion, is really sort of analogous to what Tesla was on about in terms of energy environment paradigm. So the spin in this talk that Adam gave, if you want to check it out, it's a pre-inconvenient truth type speech. I transcribed it from an audio tape. It basically says, in 25 years from 1988, we had to get our energy environmental act together, or we'd encounter what I've come to term personally an ecospheric death spiral. On a lighter note, based on my own Tesla interest, what I felt then was that others would soon share it. And this handy little Google interest trend graph shows that there's an increasing trend line of interest. Also a Facebook group, Occupy Tesla, shows a similarly increasing level of activity. So what's up? My company, Polyphase Productions, with 3 other partners, including Mark, John Cutler, and Daniel Flannery, is into launching numerous Tesla projects based on the demonstrably increasing international audience and a demand for quality cinema fare like The King's Speech. We have a constellation of Tesla-centric projects. They're creatively conjoined efforts based on the central expectation of positive audience fascination. Just made that up yesterday. But I'm sure it means something to someone. Damn interesting, Tesla's Tower of Power. It's a website, damn interesting. It's just random. It's everywhere. Wherever you go, click on something and it'll take you to Tesla. Just out of curiosity, when you get back to your workstations, Google Tesla Octopus. I was surprised. So, The Lost Wizard is a major epic biopic. Amadeus meets the aviator via Beautiful Mind, The King's Speech, and La Vie en Rose, which I thought was a quite fantastic movie. Or, if we can't get the movie going, or if someone believes that there's an actual better opportunity, hello, or juggling a radioactive egg, we could do The Lost Wizard as a major mini-series event. Mad Men meets Downton Abbey via the Pacific Boardwalk Empire and House of Cards, just referentially. As Nikola Tesla was the next Edison, a wizard of electricity. He was no conjurer, although his work once seemed magical. So back to Mark, Wizard, 18th edition in 9 languages, showing long tail sales trend. Its sales year to year are increasing. It's in the top 5,000 on Amazon. His book, reviewed by Publishers Weekly, rescues pioneer inventor. Back to Publishers Weekly, please. Restores him to his rightful place and is the fullest account yet of Tesla, highest rated Publishers Weekly. So if you're going to make a movie, make it on a book that's the best. That's the way to go. It's the greatest untold story of the past century, one of wonder, sorrow, triumph, deception, love, and madness. So there's a trick photo of him with Sandra Bernhard. I'm not sure where his hand is. The King's Speech is a comparable historical drama. It was made for $15 million. No one knew anything about King George IV, I believe. Made $400 million. Our proposition as an audience is similar to that, but a bigger popularity because there's actually people who know Tesla, who Tesla is. So we expect comparable returns in terms of box office popularity to The King's Speech. There's also another website called Top Tens. Top 10 true stories that ought to be movies. Number 1, Nikola Tesla. They tried to make the world forget his name. We actually have a demo video we did years ago. It's popped up on this DNA tube. And the comment that someone left about our video is, "This is my favorite video ever to date. People cry when their sports team loses. I tear up for the whole of humanity." So, dude, hang on. Okay, so also there's this incredible book called Awesome Power, the story of Tesla and the ruling elite, unavailable. If you ever get one, give me a call immediately. It's basically how the ruling elite handled Tesla because of his disruptive propositions to their vested interests. Fundamental approach for our movie is expressed by producer Gary Goetzman, who produced the epic miniseries The Pacific. Truth is more amazing than anything you can make up. You got to find the truth. It's always a better story. So Tesla's truth marches on. Reader's report by the producer of Star Wars, Robert Watts, several years ago. Robert's a great ally. Hopefully one day we'll team up. Excellent script, bristling dialogue, full of wit, humor, pathos, and nostalgia should be made. I think those are pretty good reviews for our screenplay. And hopefully it'll be on the silver screen in the next 30 years. JPL Director Dr. Charles Alachi in Caltech's Engineering Journal, Issue 7, Tesla becoming a cool person, young people are getting into electrical engineering. So then we have Charles with a Mars rover. Tesla-inspired engineering. Serbia has one of the highest levels of electrical engineering because Tesla's a demigod. This is quite an interesting YouTube demo. Tesla, her preschool presentation on Tesla. In the Wall Street Journal, Tesla is Tesla-mania. Long dead inventor Tesla is electrifying hip techies. In top 40 keyword popularity, he's number 2 after Edison pretty regularly. Our demo video that we posted on YouTube, or was virally reposted by some fellow in the United Kingdom, had 2.5 million hits, was the 9th top-rated all-time science and technology in the world. So someone is watching. Okay, the highest rated comment on YouTube for our demo video was the greatest story never told. When will someone finally make a serious and real movie? Another comment was it would be epic. Okay, those are 2 people who will buy tickets. Tesla is a demonstrably accelerating overall mind share via Tesla Motors and Tesla the Rock Band. Multiple audience quadrants is what they want to hear when you're proposing a project, that there's going to be a multiplicity of different people, audience groups who all can join to show up to see a movie. So these are some of my credits. Just a couple of years ago, Yellow Submarine, a remake, Test, Zathura, Polar Express, Time Machine, Men in Black, Forrest Gump, Back to the Future, etc. So the other projects besides our movie, the constellation of conjoined creative enterprises, are Tesla 2.0, a time travel series pilot I wrote. He's back to do whatever it takes. What would Tesla do? Man of Tomorrow, a graphic novel with a friend of mine, Dean Motter, who's a fantastic award-winning graphic artist, worked at DC Comics for many years, Superman, Batman, etc. Done a couple Star Wars graphic novels. Residence Man, a time travel thriller to save our future. Tesla must change his past, and Tesla Detectives, a reality series with the Tesla Science Foundation, and the president of the foundation is a registered private investigator. So Tesla Detectives coming to a television series reality show near you at some point. Another project we have is a musical stage production based on a radio drama called Tesla versus the United States, based on a 1943 Supreme Court decision about Tesla's priority in the patents of radio versus Marconi. The Tesla Factor, a documentary series I want to do on an innovation, inspiration, and invention with David Kennard, the producer of the original Cosmos with Carl Sagan, connections with James Burke. He's won a raft of Emmys, DuPont, Columbia, Science Film Fest, BAFTA, Cine Gold Eagle. He's the real deal. He's an international documentary producer, the Tesla Factor documentary series. So we've got a couple things that at any point could pop. Also, one of the other projects we have is the idea for a 3D immersive dome show called the Teslarium, through the mind of Nikola Tesla in 21 minutes. One of my partners, Daniel Flannery, did Star Wars at the Hollywood Bowl, just came back from China where he did a large theater project for 3 months. He also did the Olympics closing ceremony in LA. So the Teslarium is another project. Tesla Quest, tomorrow's Tesla Today, which is looking for young inventors who are Tesla-inspired type kids who have an idea for something which could tie into a Tesla Science Fair with the Tesla Science Foundation. So we have the biopic and Tesla, the electrifying musical, which I'm working on with some musicians out of Toronto. It's a rock opera like Jesus Christ Superstar. So in summary, Tesla is in the shadows. It's time to bring the King's Speech for geeks as the Lost Wizard out into the mainstream. So that's an overview of the activities that I'm trying to get going in terms of media production. So into Tesla's story itself, hopefully there's a resurgence can trigger inflection point opportunities to produce impacts. Tesla always said that his future for which he really worked is his. A lot of people think a lot about Tesla's personality with this fact that he would have 18 napkins at every time that he had a meal and had to polish his utensils, but he actually, when he was young, had suffered from cholera, so he was very germophobic, so it actually makes sense to not have dirty utensils. Another of his mannerisms was his adoration of pigeons, but in biblical terms you can see the white pigeon as a dove, which is a Christ metaphor, so the pigeons might not actually just be gritty little birds, but metaphorically more important to where his mind was at. So people think he was weird because he had too many napkins and he liked pigeons. But he was actually a man of the future, a genius who loved America and added to its present greatness. Apparently they were interested in how he looks at work. Tesla is now being taught in a university college. I think this was Cornell. So Tesla was never really in the electronic engineering textbooks because one of his competitors was the Dean of Electrical Engineering, Michael Pupin at Columbia, who wrote him out of the textbooks, which is one reason you don't hear about him or hadn't heard about him. So Tesla still is at the center point of considering alternate futures. Are we going to have a technological utopia or a barren, bereft ecosystem? So Tesla I can see as being a pivotal figure in people's ideas about what the future holds. So on the internet these days, you can just find a plethora. You don't have to go to an occult bookshop to find a mimeograph copy. You can find about Nikola's predictions for the future of the human race, easily available these days. Now, of course, we have the Tesla car, Tesla honoring Tesla, his car. Some engineer for Tesla Motors on a blog post years ago said if Tesla walked into the shop, he would instantly recognize that the engine in a Tesla auto is 99% the DNA of his tech specs. So there we go, Tesla auto and Tesla coil meeting, having an energizing experience. Nikola Tesla was a father of unmanned vehicle technology, which I think is of interest to the Google self-driving initiative. He was granted US patent for a method. I thought I was going to have control, but it seems to have its own mind here. For method and apparatus for controlling mechanisms of moving vessels or vehicles. But at the time, when he gave that proposition to various industrial people, they said it was too chimerical. And my proposal was too far out and nothing came from it. Now we have self-driving cars, which Tesla was advocating, but no one got it. Of course, I think some of the manufacturing prohibitions at that point might not have been exactly the same GPS enabled. Now, a lot of people like Tesla, and some Edison websites are into debunking the Tesla myth. So let's not just put them up on a pedestal, let's put them in perspective, that's fair. So you have to judge the fact that no inventor necessarily came up with something entirely on his own. He was influenced by other people. Edison and Tesla worked together, they had a falling out. But on this particular webpage it said there's no room for passion in analysis in science and history. Any emails that smell of Tesla fanaticism will be ignored. So don't get fanatical. Just be dispassionate and everything will be all right, except of course Team Tesla would prefer that we can defeat the myth of Edison. So we have a bit of controversy. I find this particular letter that I came upon, there's a close-up next. Here's a letter for you from the future, sent by me in person. Just to let you know that I'm part of your Army network and that we're very sorry for everything. We live in your time now and we're slowly discovering you were right about everything and we need to do lots of work to correct and fix everything. So Tesla. In a comic book from the 30s, Top Secrets of Nature, Nikola Tesla. So he's popular then, he's popular now. He was an electrical wizard. Most people think of him as just an electrical experimenter. As this cover from Electrical Experimenter, the Tesla wireless light. His interview with the editor of Electrical Experimenter magazine in 1907, Tesla views on electricity and the war. Now, just besides being an inventor and electrician, he was also a futurist. Tesla describes wireless warfare of the future. I think we're there. A machine to end all war. He was addressing larger issues. He was looking at how ideas and the world could have consequences. He was also a bit of a poet, philosopher. This poem, Fragments of Olympian Gossip. While listening on my cosmic phone, I caught words from the Olympus blown. So he was also concerned about peace and enlightenment to bring peace can only come as a natural consequence of universal enlightenment. So he was practically the first hippie. Furthermore, when considered in context, it's stunning to realize that when he was 9 years old in Central Europe, he envisioned and then succeeded in harnessing and implementing the AC polyphase system at Niagara Falls with George Westinghouse. So a kid in Central Europe has this vision of harnessing Niagara Falls, and he comes here, works with Edison, and he actually does it. There's the power plant. There's the whirling generators that Tesla had in his mind when he was a tyke. So this particular building in Niagara Falls is apparently still standing and available as a museum. The Niagara Gazette, wouldn't a Tesla Center make a good idea? That you could have a restoration of his legacy. This small building, a couple hundred yards upstream of the Horseshoe Falls on the Canadian side, has been renovated. Actually, I was there a couple years ago. They did a lot of interior construction and structural adaptation. It's available for $1 to put in a museum or some type of facility. So I'm talking to some people. Hopefully we can find some corporate underwriting opportunities. It's quite an interesting architectural edifice. All about Tesla Vision. This is a group on Facebook called Tesla's Ambassadors. Tesla's legacy is ultimately important if his impacts ripple through to resonate in the future. It's profound and confounding and frustrating to really get a handle on Tesla because he goes from the focus of rock band glory, Tesla the rock band coming at you, versus grassroots efforts to revive his name and legacy. This is the Philadelphia Tesla Science Foundation Science Club having an outdoor shindig. A National History Day 2013 first place documentary, Nikola Tesla, Electrifying a New Era. So you've got rock bands, grassroots, documentaries. A lot of people, if he was known at all previously, thought of Tesla as the quintessential mad scientist. This is an interesting Sgt. Pepper-esque collage. The central Christ figure is apt, as his family had expected him to become a priest, but he rebelled and he wanted to become an engineer. In this grouping of his actual and virtual colleagues, it's notable he's shown as a one-man band, that having been both his strength and ultimate weakness. He didn't have a Sergey, Larry, Woz, Steve, he just had Nikola. So he didn't have a deep team. It's also noteworthy that even known as being a recluse, he actually was a rock star of his time when he performed his electrical feats and demonstrations, including at the Madison Square Garden. He took a show on the road, went to Europe. Man of Lightning, live electrical stage show. So he flabbergasted his audience with bolts of Jove thrown live in front of them. It was must have been pretty impressive of the day. So this is an interesting T-shirt, I assume. It's a logo. The Electric Jesus. So cribbing from the Blues Brothers, in one sense, Tesla was on a mission from God. because he had higher aspirational and inspirational motives, which I'm going to get into a little bit now. I went to a New York City conference held in January, Remember Tesla, where the main theme of the conference is actually why Tesla matters today. So similarly, I had the same shirt actually. This is me speaking at that conference. Why Tesla matters, the conference, this is the chatter on one of the Tesla community groups, why Tesla matters today, is something that's really consequential because, for instance, you had Operation Let's Build a goddamn Tesla Museum. So Tesla got a huge amount of response to this particular thing, $1 million in 9 days. They'd been trying to raise 18 years, they'd raise 100,000, so this was a big breakthrough. The lab has been saved. The Tesla Society at Wardenclyffe Science Center is now up and active, and they have volunteers cleaning up, trying to get corporate underwriting to get the museum phase. But right now they own the land. So this is the group of the grassroots community that rallied to avoid this becoming another set of condos. The Tesla Science Center at Wardenclyffe, this place matters. So here we have the last living legacy of lab footprint. Before and after, the bottom shot is the visualization of what the restored lab will look like, designed by Stanford White, a friend of his, a prime architect, who was shot by Harry Thaw in a love, jealousy, rage, the crime of the century, which we don't have time for. There's a picture of the tower with the lab at the bottom, set back, obviously. So I'm here also as a representative of the board member of the Tesla Science Foundation, based in Philadelphia. Right now they have a mission statement to promote Tesla's legacy and raise awareness of his accomplishments. They recently teamed up with the Tesla Science Museum for a touring exhibit. It's currently now in the New York Hall of Science. It's going to go across the country to different venues, hoping to find somewhere to put it in the San Francisco Bay Area. Tesla's Wonderful World of Electricity. It's being sponsored by various entities. It's quite an amazing layout from the photos that I've seen. Haven't got room right here. Some interesting other Tesla backstory. Our foremost electrician, this is a picture from a newspaper when he performed at Madison Square Garden running electricity through his body. This is something he wrote, an essay called Man's Greatest Achievement. He had a knack for having a grand view and a philosophical, poetic take on the scheme of things. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but what has a future in store for this strange being, born of a breath of perishable tissue, yet immortal with his powers fearful and divine? Well, maybe I'll finish it. Yeah.
Time for questions.
Okay. So I'll wrap it up real quick, if I could. Just jumping ahead, one of the things that Tesla was concerned about really is the future of fossil fuels and consuming material and the effect on the environment. Here we have the legacy fossil fuel type extractive methodology, which really Tesla, if anything, Tesla today should hopefully engender breakthrough energy research, because as he said, we should be driving the world's machinery because electric power is everywhere present in unlimited quantities. So I suppose we can take a break if anyone's got a couple quick questions to follow up on what I've said so far. Anybody? Enthusiasm level for Tesla increased?
So I have a question. So yeah. Elon Musk,
yeah,
you think he'd be interested in backing some of these things that you got going on?
Well, I can't really speak to that directly. I know that he was approached and did contribute towards the fundraising for the museum. It's a matter of record. I'm pretty sure his plate's pretty full. What I really was getting to shortly, if we hadn't had a little, I'll just let this play through. The consequential, sort of pertinent tie-in for my being here is actually that I was going to get to. Larry Page himself has said in numerous speeches, including Zeitgeist 2011, he was inspired to become a scientist, inventor, the age of 12 when he read a book on Tesla. So, but he said, don't be like Tesla, be like Edison. So what I'd actually been getting to shortly was that perhaps you should be like Tesla, but be successful as Edison was, because I think they had divergent methodologies. Tesla was in for the long game. Edison was in it for the short commercial success. Not that Edison didn't contribute some incredible technological breakthrough products, but I think dismissing Tesla out of hand needs a more nuanced examination of his place in the pantheon of important people. And that's the reason that I'm working on Tesla projects, is to sort of communicate the fact that there's such a groundswell of interest in Tesla should be seen as a call for people to get involved and consider alternative, innovative inspiration, invention. That's what you guys are all here doing every day anyway. So earlier when I was talking about my personal experiences with radio, radio station, recycling, the actual ultimate inflection point is actually PageRank, which, as you can see, is just an idea that Larry Page had, which has now become a huge endeavor and enterprise. And besides just search, you guys are doing all sorts of, investing in solar power plants and Project Loon and fantastic other enterprises which don't really connect to the original PageRank inflection point proposition. But Tesla, I think, is a opportunity for us to have a second appreciation of what he represented. And I think a lot of people are tuning in to what that opportunity is. And if anybody has any interest and wanted to communicate with me at any point, I have some cards. If you want to know anything else, feel free. Okay, on the mic.
And you have to sit.
Okay, so two quick questions. Thanks for coming. First, you had a lot of great links for the YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff. Is there any way we can quickly have a list of those, or even look at your presentation? Can you share that with us?
My presentation for sure.
Okay, cool.
Anybody can have it. You just I'll email it to you.
Okay. And the second question, I think we all know a little bit about Tesla, but I was hoping, I guess, from the grand scheme of things, why do you think, if he had such awesome, forward-thinking, wireless technology for the world ideas, other than what do you think is the main reason why he didn't succeed, and why do you think we're still not there, really?
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Why is there not one tower in New York powering wireless technology for the world using AC?
Yeah. Well, at one point I was about to get to was also Tesla went through various iterations of funding sources, and at one point he was partnered with J.P. Morgan to develop the Wardenclyffe lab, which he had basically proposed to J.P. Morgan would provide J.P. Morgan with stock ticker prices when J.P. Morgan was in Paris buying art. Tesla had a grander vision, which was world wireless energy transmission. So when you have a disruptive technology and have an investor who's invested in copper for wires, he doesn't really want to be invested in something that's going to make that obsolete. So personally, I don't think the world wireless energy electrical schema is practical because of the law of unintentional consequences. There'd probably be all sorts of pigeons wouldn't know which way to fly anymore, and other, unforeseen circumstances. But Tesla was, as I said, he was a bit of a rogue. He had a sort of a narcissistic view of himself. One of the fundamental flaws in his business dealings with Morgan is he gave away 51% of their joint venture to Morgan as a grand gesture, thinking that J.P. Morgan would see it as a philanthropical enterprise for the goodness of humanity, that this system would be good for everybody. Morgan wanted to be good for the people who could pay him. So you have a cognitive dissonance. Tesla saw this grand vision as being the ulterior motive was for the benefit of mankind, which gets back to Larry Page's thing about changing the world for the better. So the correspondence with Tesla and Larry Page, I don't want to overstate it, but the fact of the matter, this guy really wanted to do good things for the right reasons. And when you have a vested interest and you propose a disruptive technology, you're going to get the hurdle of resistance. You have inertia. We have fossil fuel industries are so big you can't really turn that ship around. What you need right now is an energy breakthrough like cold fusion at one point might have been, or synthetic photosynthesis, artificial photosynthesis. I was just reading a new breakthrough in hydro electrolysis They can do a 5% energy efficiency conversion of breakdown of water to hydrogen with very cheap materials that takes the cost of that process to be scalable. So he ran out of runway. Basically, Westinghouse was his best deal when they did the AC polyphase thing. And then he would have investors like John Jacob Astor, who invested $100,000 to do fluorescent lighting. They called it cold lighting. But Tesla took the money and went to Colorado and built a magnifying transmitter lab to find out if the Earth was a conductor. So John Jacob Astor was then on the Titanic, and so his investment with the Astors ended, and he didn't deliver what Astor had expected. So he basically sometimes misrepresented what he was going to use the money for. So that sort of leaves a bad taste in investors' minds, I suppose. I guess if you have a taste in your mind. But the fact of the matter is, right now, as I said, there was a college course on Tesla now, Cornell or somewhere, or at least a tech panel. And the fact of the matter is, one of his adversaries was a fellow Serb named Michael Pupin, who was at one point the dean of the Columbia School of Electrical Engineering department, who wrote the textbook on electricity. And because of their dispute, Tesla's not in the textbook. So all of a sudden you've got an entire cadre of electrical engineering students not having an electrical pioneer on their radar. So he just sort of takes a nosedive. So as I said, Tesla had a lot of opportunities. Perhaps he squandered some of them just because of his grandiose expectations and belief in his own prowess. But on the other hand, one of the slides I had was he basically said the only way to get stuff done was to go off and think about it. So at a certain point, that's a sort of a mad scientist paradigm that you're opening yourself up to be just a crazy loony bin. What's he talking about? Self-driving cars and energy beams to shoot down airplanes. He wanted to develop. He called it the peace ray. Of course, that doesn't really sell newspapers, so they called it the death ray, which is a way to annihilate aircraft at a distance. So the whole Star Wars that Ronald Reagan came up with was basically a variant. Tesla's at the heart of the concept of directed energy weaponry. So now you have B-52 bombers with lasers that are supposed to intercept, ICBMs in flight. So must be another question.
So yeah, well done. Can you speak a little bit to why you think Tesla is becoming so relevant now again after so many years of not being on the national consciousness or international consciousness?
I'll just scroll through these pictures because they're pretty good ones. Well, the fact of the matter is, when I first learned about Tesla, I think a lot of people who learn about Tesla are going, this is crazy. How come I graduated from college, I took all this history, I was into electronics or various scientific interests, and how come I never heard about this guy? So a lot of the people that I encounter share the same thing. Is it's just now we have the information age where I've got like 10,000 screen grabs of different ideas from Facebook Tesla groups, of which there's 10 or 20 that I follow on a daily basis, and LinkedIn groups. And the fact of the matter is you have this profusion of information exchange that before, as I said, in the 70s when I read about them and when I found these documents, you just didn't know where to go or how to find it. Now the entire zeitgeist has got Tesla. It's becoming a ubiquitous. Tesla's gone from a zero then to a hero now. He's gone from being in the shadows, and now he's popular. And now, the band Tesla, for instance, I happen to know that the backstory was that the manager of that band was a Tesla nut. So he just had the band call themselves Tesla. There wasn't really a rationale for it. But the fact of the matter is, Tesla's now just taken the philosophical high ground. He's grabbed the people's interest because with a car and a band and all these groups, advocating for Tesla, You've got, as I said, the harness the forces of nature to the service of mankind. So Tesla was really on an elevated path, and I think people really fundamentally embrace somebody who's trying to do the right thing for the right reason.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you very much for coming and your presentation. I'm curious, kind of jumping off your last statement, because of this surge in his popularity, what do you see as the biggest hurdle now to producing that miniseries or that movie that'll really do him justice?
Well, the history of our efforts to date have been that people are dubious that there's an audience for an obscure dead scientist. So one of the things is you've got to prove to people that there's an interest, and I think that the metrics bear that out in spades. The fact of the matter is there's been multiple attempts by various people which have been abandoned to do Tesla movies. So when you have the landscape of previous attempts, it sort of makes it uncool. And right now I'm working with a bunch of people who believe this is a great thing to do. I'm pretty excited about the people I'm working with on Tesla Jesus Christ Superstar type musical. And it's a funny story, one of the actual producers of that production contacted us years ago about doing a movie, and we're still in touch with him. He produced Jesus Christ Superstar, Grease, Saturday Night Fever. So the fact of the matter is it's all with the right person and the right connection at the right time with the right proposition. So as you can see, Tesla actually produced real world results. These are generators at the Tesla Niagara Falls Power. It wasn't just he was a hippy dippy, crazy, loony idea dude. He actually had verifiable real world effects on Google.